Well, it's been a week since the U.S. election, and I want to take a break from talking about it because I've gotten a bit bored with it. I mean, I talked about the election for a couple weeks before, and those of you who have been longtime subscribers of this channel know that I don't normally do like politics every day. I don't do that. I try and talk about things that other people don't, because I find other stuff interesting than what you hear about on TV. And one of those happened to have been the Nagorno-Karabakh war, which broke out, gosh, in September. It feels like so long ago, late September, September 27, I believe. And that I was very sad to see that happen. I think that wars of that nature, to where you have an ethnic minority that has broken away from the mother country, let's say, and has said, no, we don't want to be a part of Azerbaijan. We don't consider ourselves Azeris. We don't want to live under your laws. We want to live under our own laws or the laws of Armenia, because these are, of course, ethnic Armenians. And Nagorno-Karabakh has been separated, for all intents and purposes, from Azerbaijan since the end of the Cold War. And in fact, I think the war might have started even before the Soviet Union dissolved. And sadly, that war started up again this year, from what I understand, because they had backing from the Turks, although it looks like Azerbaijan militarily was able to accomplish this, based on their own merit and their own might. Armenia does not appear to have held up too well. They didn't surrender, but they saw the writing on the wall that they were not going to be able to hold out forever, and they have had to sign a peace treaty. Now, I do think that is a good thing. I think it's a good thing that the war is over. I thought, I said from the beginning, I thought this is a very stupid war. If you are a state and a bunch of people in part of your territory say, we don't respect you, we want nothing to do with you, and we're going to tear down your flag and raise our own flag, it's just, you don't really gain anything by going in there, because what are you going to do? Are you going to ethnically cleanse the people? Are you going to try and re-educate them to make them loyal to you? That's not something that I consider to be humane in any reasonable sense. And thankfully, Azerbaijan did not attain a total victory. From what we understand, and I think there's going to be more details to come out later, for now, both sides are going to withdraw their troops, or at least Armenia is. Armenia is completely withdrawing. I don't know if Azerbaijan is pulling all their troops out, but they're supposed to be Russian peacekeepers, is what we're told. And of course, the Russians are an Orthodox Christian country, and so that should provide some solace to the ethnic Armenian population that remains in Nagorno-Karabakh, although apparently what we're hearing is that 90,000 of the 150,000 people who live there have already fled into Armenia proper. So 2/3 of the population has already been cleansed. And when you see numbers like that, if that's true, I don't really see how the Azeris, over the course of the next few years, don't completely just take it over. Because they already got rid of 2/3 of them. Even if the Armenians that are there, are diehards and they want to stay, they're not going to have any power, because Azerbaijan will probably just start moving their people in there and settling them, and that'll be that. And no, I don't care that back in the days of the Soviet Union or whatever, this territory was technically within the borders of the Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic. And no, I wouldn't care if the shoe was on the other foot and this was some kind of Islamic enclave within Armenia that wanted to separate from them. On people on my side who are not particularly fond of NATO, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but yes, even in the case of Kosovo, although in that case you had more of a split population, I do not think that if there was a serious, independence movement in Kosovo, that the central government of Serbia had any right to stop that. But of course, that situation in Kosovo was more complicated because you also had Serbs there who did not want to be separate from Serbia. Nagorno-Karabakh is, from what I understand, a different, very different sort of situation where the people who live there pretty much are Armenian. I don't know that I haven't heard of a population of Azeris who feel like they're being oppressed by the Armenian majority living in that area. Now, of course, within Armenia, this is a very humiliating defeat. People are upset at their leaders for giving in. I saw a video going around of what looked to be like a food fight going on in Armenian parliament. You had protesters who came in waving flags and people shouting and kicking and all sorts of mayhem. So that's about all the information that I could find on this today. I'm sure there's got to be more information that comes out on this soon, to where we will know more definitively what exactly the arrangement in Nagorno-Karabakh is, or what is it the Armenians called Artsakh. Because I heard some people saying essentially that the Armenians had totally surrendered it or given half the territory to Azerbaijan. I could not confirm that from what I saw. If some of you have links to where that's being reported, I'd be happy to take a look at them. But I don't. The English-speaking media is not reporting too much on this situation, as you might imagine. They're much more enamored with Joe Biden and Donald Trump, which is all well and good. But again, I care much more about war and peace and people living and dying. Of course, we've got other news on that front with the U.S. Firing the Secretary of Defense. I haven't talked about that yet because I haven't really figured out what's going on with that. There's a lot of things that could be. Of course, I think probably the most salacious rumor going around, which I very much hope is not true, is that Trump and Pompeo wanted to go to war with Iran last year, and it was Esper who was standing in their way who really put the kibosh on that and tried to clamp down on the situation, and that right now what we're seeing is the U.S. imposing more sanctions on Iran. Trump may very well have to vacate the presidency in January, and people are trying to connect Esper's removal, and I think there might have even been some sort of anonymous sources, which are totally unreliable, saying that essentially Trump wanted Esper out of the way so they could start some war with Iran. I'm nowhere near saying that yet. To me, that's a pretty far-fetched theory. But the only reason I bring it up is that last year, during the build-up to what looked like could be a war with Iran, I said, it makes no sense for Trump to go to war with Iran right now. When you will see Trump go to war with Iran, if he ever does, it will be when he is in trouble politically and he needs some kind of big unifying moment to generate patriotic fervor behind him. And I was thinking the summer of 2020, right before the election, if he's not doing well in the polls or something like that, and he thinks he's going to lose, he can start a war and be a wartime president, and then everyone will rally behind the president. Well, that didn't end up happening, I think because Trump thought he would win on his own merits. The economy did not crash to the extent that I thought would be necessary for him to have to try and distract with that sort of thing. And so at this point, you could kind of make a similar argument that, okay, well, maybe he's going to try and start a war to, I don't know, justify staying in office or something like that and say, and declare some emergency powers. I just don't think that that's far-fetched. Or I'm sorry, I do think that is too far-fetched. And so I wanted to bring this rumor up, not to endorse it, but rather to address it and say that I don't think, that even though this is somewhat similar to what I was saying last year, I think that this is a little too much. There's no precedent in this country for a president going to war and then declaring himself the dictator and saying, no, we can't have the next president come in because we're at war. We have had presidents change during wartime. Both Nixon and Obama came into office when there were already ongoing wars overseas. And so I don't see how Trump could somehow save himself from, being removed from office on January the 20th by starting a war with Iran. I think that all of his legal cases are what he's betting on to keep himself in office. Because again, the Trump administration and Republicans show no sign of conceding. Even Mike Pompeo today, when he was asked about the smooth transition of power to the next administration, he said there's going to be a smooth transition of power to a second Trump administration. So the war in Nagorno-Karabakh seems to be winding down and, is hopefully not going to have any more casualties. And luckily, I do not think there's going to be a war with Iran in the next month or two. Now, if Joe Biden or Trump is the president next year in 2021, I can't guarantee that there won't be a war with Iran. That always seems to be on the table with these people. And Trump, even though he's a little less war hawkish in general, was pretty hawkish on Iran. So no matter who's president come this January, we're going to have to keep an eye on that space for the next 4 years, and probably the 4 years after that, and the 4 years after that, as long as Iran remains an enemy of Washington and the U.S. establishment. So with that said, if you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day, and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.